Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Please share who you're with and your full name.
Sure. So my name is Kit Shipe, and I am a partner at Shipe Dosick Law. That's an Atlanta-based franchise boutique. I'm here with my partner Pete Dosick.
Good morning.
Good morning, Pete. Pete, happy to have you back in the studio.
I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, I just have to do a shout out to our listeners. Pete actually was here for our inaugural show for the Franchise Business Radio. And believe it or not, Pete, this was a couple years ago. I think it was 3 years ago to be exact.
You look great, though.
Thank you, but that's why we're on the radio. It's timeless for us. Uh, so happy to have you guys in the studio. In addition, who's going to be joining us in the studio is we actually have Pinot Palette, and if you scan over here, we've got Michael. And hey, Michael, so happy to have you on the show. This is the first time ever. We're actually going to be able to witness. We're on the radio, but we do have video. We're actually going to be able to witness how palette actually works. And in a minute, a little later in the show, we're going to have Schubert talk a little bit about the business model itself. And it's really going to give us a different perspective on franchising. What does it mean to be a franchisee, especially a Pinot Palette franchisee? Thank you. All righty, let's go ahead and learn a little bit more about franchise law. Not an exciting topic, but a very important one. Am I allowed to say that?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me give my listeners a little bit of background on Kit and Pete. Kit is a 96 UNC Law graduate, and Pete is a 97 Duke Law graduate. You're never supposed to give your age, guys. They met about 20 years ago in the corporate group of what is now Patrick Townsend and have been partners at Shipe Dosick since 2013. You've been involved in the legal aspects of franchise for over 20 years. Both are franchise time legal eagles. Pete was former in house counsel at Church's Chicken, overseeing legal for around 2,000 units. Kit was VP of franchise to what is now Global Franchise Group in Norcross, owner of several snack concepts like Great American Cookies, Marble Slab, just to name a couple. GC of Jampro Franchising International in Alpharetta. Obviously, between the both of you, you've launched many different startup franchisors, close to 60. And you actually started Shipe Dosick and represent dozens more franchisors nationally as well as internationally. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wide variety of transactional matters are covered there.
Right,
Uh,
right.
you've also represented dozens of franchisees. You structure their business, selecting and forming an entity, partnership documentation, and obviously there's disputes in the franchise world. So you've had to manage the disputes with franchisors for a variety of issues. Uh, Kit and Shipe help prospective franchises maneuver the maze of franchise agreements, financing documents, lease agreements, as well as purchase existing franchise and asset and merger transactions. Wow. Okay.
That's what we do. Yeah.
And so I'm going to start off on a personal level. What sparked your passion for franchise?
So I knew, so essentially a franchise lawyer, or most franchise lawyers, are corporate attorneys. And I did start out knowing in law school I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. I wanted to be the kind of lawyer that people actually were excited to come and see, helping them build something that they were passionate about, and I wanted to be a piece of that process. So um, when I got out of law school, I was in the corporate department of a major law firm, and I was asked to be a part of the franchise team. There, I worked under a gentleman who is he was a wonderful mentor to me, and his passion for it kind of rubbed off on me. What I
Mm.
loved about it, though, was really learning about all the interesting ways that people can come up with to develop businesses and make a living. And Atlanta is such a great city for that because we do have such an incredibly creative business community, and it really is an incubator for franchise concepts.
Definitely.
And then also on the franchisee side, it's a little bit more, I think, personal than a lot of areas of corporate law because you really are helping people make such an important life decision.
Hmm.
Often they're investing their life savings in something, very rewarding because franchising does provide people with an opportunity to get away from a paycheck and really build a business that's their own.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not have an MBA and they may not have the greatest idea for a restaurant, but franchising can give just a typical person that you know with some guardrails so that they're making the decision knowing that it is a proven format. So
Well said.
it provides a lot of opportunity for business for people.
Absolutely, absolutely well said. Well, I understand where you got your passion, and obviously, that sounds why
And
you
you
decided to specialize
right.
in franchise law. Uh, so, I want to talk a little bit about Shipe and Dosick, and I don't know who to pose this question to. What makes your practice unique?
I'm going to take that one, I think, first. Uh, what makes us a bit unique is our experience as in-house franchise counsel, that we get to bring a whole level of experience and knowledge to representing both franchisees and franchisors. We can draw on our experience of not just the legal matters, but really what franchisors are thinking and why they're doing the things we do and how we can use that to the advantage of our clients.
Mm,
And just adding to that, so Pete and I have both had significant experience not only in private practice but at franchise companies on executive teams. We know how franchise executives think, and
right.
we've also been in the trenches seeing how these legal provisions that I think to a lot of people look like just ink on paper can really play out and really impact situations.
Mm,
So we've been in the trenches, and we like to think that because of that, we really understand these documents and we really know what's important and what
hmm
is not important.
The value of seeing the franchise model from all different perspectives.
Exactly,
Hmm
exactly.
So, if you were buying an existing franchise business, how is that different from buying a business that is not a franchise?
Uh, it's different in a couple of different ways. One is that when you're buying a franchised business that's already existing, you do have to have awareness that there's a third party involved, not just the seller, but also there's the franchisor. So what I've seen people run into is they go plan the purchase, they go to close the deal, and the franchisor says, "Wait a minute, you need to go to the training program. This is going to delay things by 6 weeks." And if people had an attorney who understood franchising more, they would not have been caught off guard by that. So that's one example. Similarly, one great advantage of buying an existing franchise, what I like to do when I'm representing the buyer, is I call the franchisor and say, "Hey, please come do an inspection. Come look
Yeah.
at this restaurant we're buying, and is it up to brand standards?" So the franchisor is super happy that someone called them and actually asked to have an inspection done. But also that then when I'm with the buyer or with the seller, we can know exactly from an independent third party what's got to get fixed and who's going to pay for it and how it's going to get handled.
Mm. Anything else to add to that?
Well, I would say, and just kind of an overarching idea about franchising that people should understand when they get into buying a franchise versus just buying an existing business is that you are going to be buying into a system, and a big part of that is the franchisor, through the franchise agreement, is going to have a lot of discretion to tell you what to do, when to remodel, what to spend on that remodel, um, what products to offer. And so while it takes an entrepreneurial spirit to get into franchising, I
Hmm
think, the wisdom says you also have to understand that you will ultimately have to go with the system. And for good reason, because obviously when someone drives through a McDonald's, they're expecting
That's right.
a certain burger with a certain bun, and then also franchisors, through time, markets change, they need to be able to, in their wisdom, dictate changes in the system.
And
So
those are the kind of things that are covered in the franchise agreement.
exactly,
Part
exactly.
part.
One other thing that's different about buying an existing franchise, I was speaking this morning to a new guy who's
Hmm
buying a franchise or buying a business that's currently owned by the franchisor and they're refranchising it. And one thing that's different here is when we write a check at closing, quite a lot of money, we know the seller's not going to take the money and flee the country, right? We're going to be still partners with the people that sold the business to us, and
Right.
that gives you a different approach, both legally and from a business point of view, when buying an existing business that's coming from the franchisor itself.
Makes sense. No, great. These are great tips for our listeners. So definitely, thank you. So along on that level, what should every franchisee understand about franchising from a legal perspective? I'm going to buy a franchise. I'm a franchisee. What do I really need to understand on a layman level as a
Right,
franchisee?
right. So I think that the main FTC, its main goal is to prevent fraud. There are certain states that also regulate. Georgia is not one of them. Um, but how the FTC prevents fraud is to require this very extensive disclosure. It's a 23 item document that goes into really all the material things about the franchisor's business,
Mm-hmm.
provides its financial statements, lists of franchisees, current and former, um, and that document is called a franchise disclosure document,
That's right. Hmm.
as you well know, I'm sure.
No, this is for the listeners. Thank you.
And then I think the second thing that a franchisee, prospective franchisee, needs to understand going into this is that franchise agreements are very one-sided, and so if the goal should not different type of transaction, as I mentioned before, you are giving away a lot of control over your business, and there are some good reasons for that,
Yeah.
so that the franchisor can maintain the system.
It-
So
Mm-hmm.
And similar
Yeah.
to that point, what I think kind of the main issue legally in franchising is to understand that if you buy a franchise, essentially you're buying a brand and a system, and your job is to execute it with your own money and at your own risk.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of good reasons to want to do that, but if you want to run it your own way, then you shouldn't be a franchisee. And
Exactly.
from the franchisor's point of view, they want franchisees who understand that, and buy into the system, and believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
But no matter how much we might be able to negotiate a franchise agreement and to make things more favorable to the franchisee, the bottom line is still that the franchisor owns the system and the franchisee is supposed to execute it.
right, right, and so but also, I mean, there are some franchise agreements that we review. And a good franchise attorney will be able to tell a franchisee, a prospective franchisee,
Mm-hmm.
yes, this is customary. This is an practice in franchising. This is how it's done. And but there are some agreements that push it a little too far. And so I think the process should be more understanding what you're taking on, what types of risks as a franchisee, what rights you're giving away, and then also a good franchise lawyer should help point out what is maybe not the norm
Right.
and what maybe taking it a little too far.
Understand. Yeah. Yeah, Ken.
At what point in the process should a potential franchisee contact someone like you guys?
That's a great question. I mean, I would say that pretty much when a franchisee, by the time they call us, they are through the selection process.
Mm-hmm.
So they've already decided on a concept and looked into it. Maybe they've used a broker to assist them figure out, what fits their personality and their needs and their budget. And then at that point, when maybe they've attended Discovery Day already, then they should think about getting counsel to help them review their FTD if they decide they want to do that and not do it on
Yeah, I
their own.
agree. People, don't call me the day before you sign the contract, but when you're pretty sure you want to buy it and you've gotten the contract in front of you, or at least the franchise disclosure document. Sometimes people call us earlier in the process, and if I usually sometimes even tell them, it's a little premature to engage a lawyer or write a check to us at this point. Make sure you're pretty sure you want to do this one. Go through the application process, and then give us a call.
Excellent. I have one more question from a franchisee perspective, and then I kind of want to flip to the franchisor because I know you represent a lot of franchisors as
Sure.
well. Um, you already mentioned we're talking about the agreement and the execution of that final franchise agreement. What it really means. What, what is negotiable when we think about a franchise agreement? What are some common, I guess, areas that you would be able to negotiate on for a prospective franchisee?
We have a pretty typical list of what we'll look to negotiate, what we look for. A lot of it will depend on the circumstances.
Okay.
A larger franchisee, especially somebody the size of a Subway or a major chain, they're not going to negotiate it.
Okay.
If it's a startup, it might be more negotiable. if you're bringing a lot to the table. They might want you and be willing to negotiate some points more. And I tell franchisees or people that are thinking of buying a franchise, I tell them that if the franchisor is smart, they won't negotiate because you're going to sign this thing anyway. So why should they negotiate? But a lot of them will listen to reason, and you can point out a few things. And we try to make it as easy as possible for the franchisor to agree to a few changes. There's a few things we always hit on, and then depending on what the franchise agreement says, if we see something that really is out of the norm for franchising, something that's really ridiculously overboard, we at least bring it up. And if the franchisor won't agree to our changes, at least our client, the franchisee, understands what they're getting into.
Yeah, so I would say it's funny I've been doing this for so long, and the general rule is that if the franchisor is really established, probably they're less likely to negotiate. Usually, a couple of points. I always try to get the list small and something manageable that the franchisor just doesn't scoff at, and really pick and choose battles. But in this particular instance, this franchisor said, "Oh, tell my clients, if you don't ask, you're not going to get anything."
Sure.
Maybe if it's something like a supercuts, maybe that would be a situation where you probably have to live with the contract, and really trying to negotiate is not.
I'll give you a good example. One thing I always like to bring up is what if the franchisee wants to close? Because the contract normally says you've got to operate for 10 years and you can't quit, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
Sure.
But that's
Right.
what people sign up for. Of course, your lease probably says the same thing. But that's one thing we always ask for. I want the right to close if it's not working out. And even if they
Right.
say no, at least we'll understand why and find out what the process is for approving a closure. I've got a client right now who's dealing with that. They want to get out of their franchise, and it's mostly a ask pretty please is our strategy initially.
I
Yep.
think that is what you just said. I was going to bring that up because I think that is one of the most important things to ask for. I think a lot of franchisees don't realize that if they're not profitable, then they can't close. They've signed
Right.
up for the initial term of that franchise agreement, and they could be liable for lost royalties for a certain period of time. So especially when it's a newer concept or brand new to the market, I think it's a really reasonable thing to ask. I think my success rate in getting it is not terribly high, and, but I think that it's something to ask for. Another thing is limiting personal liability, the obligations of the entity that is acting as the franchisee, and there's different ways to do that. You could try to eliminate the guarantee. Most often that's not going to work, but you could put some kind of limit on it, like maybe cap it at 50,000 or 100,000,
Or it goes away after 2 years.
or have
Oh, okay.
it burn off. When they and I've been successful getting that done for clients.
See, all of these excellent little legal tips, it's just a reminder of that franchise law is specialized. And very often, if I'm working with candidates and they say, oh, well, Uncle Bob's general counsel, I'm like, no, we can't go with Uncle Bob. We want to make sure that when you are having this agreement and document review, that you are working with someone who specializes in franchise law. Any stories around that?
It's common in franchising or how things typically work, and we had to say go back to the drawing board because it really delayed the deal, slowed things down. But someone who already knows what they're doing both can do a better job, and it's probably cheaper too because Kit and I can read these 150-page documents in 20 minutes. We know what they say, 90% of it already without even reading the document yet.
Right.
So it's pretty for us to look at it.
That makes perfect sense. Real quick, and then I want to go around and make sure we provide our listeners with your contact information. I also know you work a lot with Franchisor Wars. Can you tell us a little bit about that program?
Sure. So we represent currently, give or take, about 100 different systems.
Wow.
A lot of those are baby systems.
Sure.
And it's a nationwide practice, so many of them are not Atlanta-based. We help them get their, as we've talked about, franchising is highly regulated. So every franchisor, when they're getting ready to franchise, they need to file a trademark application with the USPTO, and then they so that's a lot of what we do as well, help in that process.
Excellent. Anything else to add, Pete?
Yeah, the bulk of our work is actually on the franchisor side. It's no
Mm-hmm.
secret that those tend to be a lot more legal work, a lot more recurring work. We work with a number of different industries as well. I in particular sometimes market myself as a chicken lawyer. I work with I work with 5 or 6 different brands, and I'm still looking for.
Hey, there's a barter for everything.
Sure.
Absolutely. Note to self. Kit, how would they go about doing that?
So our website is www.shipedosiglaw.com.
I'm going to make you spell that.
Oh, and Shipe is ship with an E, SHIP as in Paul, DOSIK.
Yeah, if you can Google Shipe Dosik and maybe spell it closely enough, it should show up.
You'll pop up.
Yeah.
Sure. My number's 404-429-7814.
And my number is 404-788-4220.
Excellent. Ken, did you have one
Yeah,
more question?
I did have one more question. Great information. I learned a lot about the house.
Exactly.
And does
Exactly.
it get rivalrous during basketball season or no?
Well, I mean, there's been times where there's been a game on and he has really been, killing dude. And I've taken photographs of it and sent that, of the score and sent that information to Pete. And sometimes I misspell Duke on purpose, D-O-O-K. But he then says, his response is, well, they didn't teach you how to spell at UNC. So, yeah.
I can tell Kid is just jealous of. That's all.
Oh, oh, Ken, you are so
Never.
wrong.
Never.
That's great. I love it. Well, really, really love having you on the show and in the studio. Pete, welcome back. I'd love
Thanks for
to
having me a
have you
second
the
time.
inaugural. Absolutely. We're going to go ahead and I'd like to introduce our next guest. Actually, we're very excited. As I mentioned before, this is Pinot's and Palette, and we actually have the franchisee from Pinot's and Palette. We're going to let her slide in here and join us at the studio at the radio. Admittedly, so I'm hoping I pronunciate your name correctly. Shubra Saxena? Oh, wonderful. Well, now Shubra is the owner and the manager of Pinot's Palette. And not only are we going to have a chance to interview her and really get a franchisee perspective, but we're actually going to have a chance to see what this whole process looks like. We've got Michael, our artist, here in the studio as well. And he is actually doing the Pro Business Channel logo as we go through this interview, and really excited about that. Shubra, welcome. Welcome to Franchise Business Radio.
Thank you so much, Pamela. It's
Uh,
nice to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Well, let me kind of start off with your story, if you don't mind. What is your story? How did this all come to be?
Okay. So, in a past life, I worked for Pepsi in Dubai, which is in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
We moved here to Atlanta, and I quickly found out that the two words I should not be saying to anyone is Pepsi and the Middle East, and that two together was
Good point.
career suicide.
Good point.
So, well, didn't quite work out for me in the career market over here. And, well, I did the PTA thing, volunteering and things like that. And I went and did this for a friend's birthday, a paint and sip. And I said, okay, I just found my calling for the rest of my life. And there started my journey. I found a franchise that I wanted to work with, and here we are today. I created a happy place that I wanted people to come in, enjoy. Kids from 3 to people to the age of 103 have all found joy in our studio.
Wonderful. So you were a customer at once, and then
Yes.
that's how you discovered
Yes, ma'am.
Pinot's Palette, and that's really common. So where did it go from there? You go, wow, I really love this concept. This is for me.
So when I found that I fell in love with the concept, I wrote to those people that this is what I want to do. They never responded.
Ah,
I waited 2 weeks. I wrote to them again. I didn't hear back. I went on the internet and I said, well, you're not going to be the only fish in the sea. I'm going to find someone who else who does this?
Sure.
And Pino's palette came up. I wrote to them. They responded right away. I
Ah,
said, okay, that's the kind of customer service I want to give to my guests.
good point. Yeah, that was the first test, right? How
Always.
responsive are you to
Yes, ma'am.
customers and franchisees, right? Future
Absolutely.
franchisees. How long have you been a franchisee?
I have been a franchisee for 5.5 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excellent. And where is your Pinos and Palette located?
My Pino's Palette Studio is located in Johns Creek.
Johns Creek. Excellent. Okay, so we're talking like we know what it is because we're sitting here watching Michael do his artwork. Tell us a little bit about the products and services. I'm a customer. What tell us a little bit about your products and services.
Okay, so as I said, it's for everyone from 3 to 103. We offer party packages, we offer corporate events, team building,
Okay.
and if you don't have anyone to go with, just join any of our public classes, come make friends in our studio.
Excellent. So with the group is like the corporate packages, do they always come to your studio? Do you ever go to them? How does that?
We do travel as well.
Okay.
Now, we don't just do corporate events, we also cater to apartment complexes. We travel for various other events as well. So,
Would you ever go into, I'm just brainstorming with you, like a senior care
oh,
home?
yes, we've done that too.
Okay, I can see that being very,
Yes.
very popular in that area. And as an individual, if you have public classes, is there a set schedule on your site?
Yes, there's an entire schedule printed on our website, and you
Okay.
can go in, pick the class that you would like to attend, or if there's just a day that you want to go have fun, pick the day, sign up for the class, come in, say that's the painting, I don't want to do it, I want to change up the colors, that doesn't match my house, we help you.
And do we get to bring in our own Pinot to drink?
Oh, absolutely. We are strictly BYOB, so I
Okay.
hope Johns Creek is not listening to this, but we have seen everything from moonshine to fine scotch.
I wish you would have brought in a sample of that.
Well, we're BYOB, so we don't supply that.
Understand. Totally understand.
We do, however, provide people with wine glasses, paper products, plasticware, ice and bottled water in our studio.
Oh, okay.
So, you don't have to worry about the peripheral things. You just bring the beverages you want to enjoy, the food you want to enjoy, and just come on in.
Is there a standard size to the class in the studio?
Not always. Our classes can be anywhere from 2 people onwards to our full class size would be 40.
Oh wow! All right, that is, and kind of, admittedly, so I've been wanting to do this. This is on my bucket list. It is on my bucket list. So, do you have a Michael in there coaching us?
Yes,
How
ma'am.
how does it work? Like, what happens in that classroom?
So when you come in, we guide you. We've got cubbies to put stuff that you won't want to get paint on. We guide you to put on an apron, set out your refreshments, pour your glass of wine. Your name's written in your place. We have assigned seating in the studio. So your name's written in your place. Oh, there. Awesome.
BYOB here,
Here we go.
Franchise Business Radio too.
You take it seriously.
No surprise, Rich has that in the studio.
Really, thank you, Rich. And just a shout out to the listeners here. Rich is a gin drinker.
BYOB and anything goes. So there's your gin.
Yeah, excellent. Thank
So
you.
you pour your glass of beverage or whatever you would like to enjoy, and you come on in and take a seat. We guide you through step by step through the process. All our artists are trained. They all have a BFA in fine art, so they're all trained artists, and then they're all trained in the Pino's Palette franchise system.
Excellent.
So they're trained in our way of instructing. They make it easy for you, and if you want to change things up, we help you do that too.
Where is Pino's Palette corporate headquarters?
It's in Houston, Texas.
In Houston, Texas. All right. And are there a couple of different stores here in Atlanta? Or are you the only store right now?
Currently, we're the only one.
Well, that's okay.
Absolutely.
And tell us a little bit about your client profile. Who do you want to target as a Pino's Palette?
Well, I would love to get more corporate clients.
Okay.
We do have a lot of corporate clients currently that we deal with, but I would love to see everyone. I would love to see come to us. I would love to see even the smaller franchise businesses, even if you have a small office, we can tailor something to your needs. The thing is, we're not in the art industry. We're in the customer experience industry.
Oh, that makes
Very
sense.
good
You know.
distinction.
It is a
Thank
good,
you.
good distinction.
So we don't have tailor-made, we don't have custom packages, we have tailor-made packages. We work with you, we identify what it is that you would like to do, and then we cater to that need.
Um, and is that the mission? Would that be a good way to describe your mission?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Uh, I'd like to just kind of get your perspective as a franchisee. We just we were just talking about franchise law and uh, that process, and you've been a franchisee for now 5.5 years. What's been your experience? What advice would you give to someone who's considering becoming a franchisee?
Do your due diligence.
Due dil-
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Know that this is what you want to get into. And even if this is the industry you want to get into, research thoroughly before you invest.
Mm.
Once you've invested, you really can't step back. So make sure that your values align with the values of the franchisor.
Ah, yeah, wow. Really, really great perspective. And we've had obviously many franchisors, many franchisees on the show, and a common theme is research, research, research. And you just brought up another very important point is that you align with the franchisor's philosophies and values and cultures and things on those lines. Uh, Kit, any thoughts around that? I see you nodding your head. Um,
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree with what she's saying. Surprisingly, there are a lot of people that I think buy franchises and they don't do very much research.
mhm,
One of the things at the back of the FDD is a list of current and former franchisees,
mhm.
and the FTC actually recommends calling at least 100 franchisees. Um, you know, it can take forever, but it's a huge investment, and I think if you have access, especially to other franchisees, you should be able to get a pretty good feel. How does the franchisor exercise its discretion? It has a lot of discretion. How does it use its discretion, and what is the culture?
Mm,
Because franchise systems will vary greatly.
That's true. Our
excellent.
discovery day was 2 days. One day we immersed ourselves in the experience, in the pain and sip experience, and the next day we met the team at headquarters, and they vetted us to see if we were a good fit for the franchise.
Yes.
And they took a week to discuss if we were a good fit, and that's when they got back to us and they said, okay, I think we agree that you're a good fit.
Yeah, and in the franchise, we call it awarding. The franchisor would say, I want to award you that
Yes.
franchise, right? Excellent. Great, just great feedback. I wanted for our listeners just to hear, what it means to be a franchisee and some important steps to take before making that commitment and signing that franchise agreement.
Right.
Mm,
Franchisors do talk about awarding a franchise, but another thing that I've heard, just different management teams, um, this really great franchise system that I worked for, he would always correct people when we would refer to franchisees as franchisees. He would say, no, they're our customers. And it
mm,
goes back to what you were saying. You got the call back right away, and that impressed you. And there are systems that really have that philosophy entrenched that franchisees, not only are they the partner, a partner in building the brand, but they are the revenue source for franchisors. They are the customer.
mm,
And
That's true. We aren't just the customers, we are also family within ourselves. We
mm.
are treated as such, and we are also, in a way, employees. So we are all constantly trained and retrained in marketing tactics and different ways of customer service. So there's different, like 3 to 4 trainings a month that we
Wow.
have to take part in.
Ongoing training,
Ongoing.
which is
Yes,
another important thing to look to, right, from your franchisor as a
absolutely.
franchisee. So should we take a look here at Michael's? Are you? This is looking great.
Yes, this is just the beginning of it. Normally in class, we would have everyone else painting what I'm doing on their own canvas.
Okay.
And at some of our, at some of our business events, we actually have the customers, the people there, come up and help me paint this. So actually, if anyone is
Ken, you want to go for it?
I'm
Okay,
going for it.
and I know that might have been a little difficult because Michael, he's being an artist. He doesn't have a headset on, but he was just sharing with us that very often in the classes, everyone will have their own canvas and be able to do their own paintings. But in addition to that, sometimes there's a group approach. Uh, Ken up there, this is, I was like, you look like a pro. I'm like, yeah, now, are you usually doing that on canvas, Ken, or is it on a wall at home?
No, usually it's
On a canvas.
wherever I find these guys.
Excellent. And I do want to ask you, if you wouldn't mind, let's share a little bit more about where your store is located for those that actually want to put together an event or even sign up for one of your public classes. How would they go about doing that?
So, well, if they want to sign up for one of our public classes, they can go on our website, www.peanuspalette.com/Johns Creek. They can find an event they would like to sign up for, or just pick a day that they want to come in. And if they don't like the painting, change up the colors, have fun with colors, whatever it is. So, that's what they can do. Or they can call us at 770-783-1783, and we can make the booking for them.
Give me that number again.
770-783-1783.
1783 770-783-1783. And just because it is a unique name, Pino's Palette, I'm going to ask you to spell that real quick.
PINOT''PALETTE.
Unders-
Pino's Palette.
Pino's Palette. And Shubra, it has been so wonderful to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's fun too.
Oh, so much fun.
I mean, what better
You
way
want
to
to
get an
take care of your
experience?
bucket list, Pamela? You want to get on there?
Do you know what? I am going to get on there. When we wrap up this show, I'm going to help Michael finish this up a little bit, and I hope I don't ruin it because
You won't.
I won't. But even better, I'm going to personally experience and check out
I
your
would
public
love
schedule.
for you to. I'll talk to you after the show. And I'll hook
Absolutely.
you up with something.
Excellent. Thank you. I think this is what we were talking about, a barter system, right? we might.
I love this barter system, actually.
Me too. It does. It gets you to your happy place, right?
Absolutely.
Back to that happy place. Excellent. Well, thank you for being in the studio and on the show.
Pleasure is mine.
Let's go ahead and do some franchise announcements, Ken. What is going on in the franchise world?
Tell you what, we have a lot of events coming up. We've got in June, in the month of June is going to be a very busy month for franchising. The International Franchise Association, Women's Franchise Network, and franchising specifically gives back,
Love it.
is going to be doing an event with the Veterans Empowerment Organization from 9 to 1 on Saturday, June 16th. And they're going to be working at the campus, helping beautify landscaping, painting, small kind of fixer-upper type things. And then we're actually going to have some sponsors there to sponsor lunch.
Oh,
And
nice.
we'll get to have lunch with the veterans.
Okay.
So
And
that's
and
there.
part of that is painting, Michael. Yeah. And if you want to volunteer, okay.
And then just 2 days after that, on the 18th of June, the International Franchise Association Women's Franchise Network is going to meet at the City Club of Buckhead. And now we've changed to Monday night this time in June because we have the Franchise Marketing Conference in Buckhead at the Intercontinental Hotel on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of that week. So that's 6/19 through the 21st. So what a lot of franchise C-level executives do is they'll come in on Monday and they'll come to the WFN event on Monday evening and then start off at Franchise Consumer Marketing on Tuesday morning.
Oh, that's going to be a busy.
It is very busy, but it's a good month.
Yeah, excellent month. Great. On just to further build on some things that are happening as far as events in the franchise world, this coming weekend there is an event that's happening in Kennesaw, and it's not specific to franchising. It's actually goes back to a nonprofit organization. It's called An Incredible Cause. What Shootout for the Soldiers does is actually a 24-hour lacrosse event. There is one lacrosse game that's held every hour over a 24-hour period, and the whole mission behind it is to raise money for the veterans and also to encourage community. So I actually am planning to volunteer at that. As you know, I recently became a franchisee with the help of Pete too of CG3 Battery Fundraising, and we serve the nonprofit organizations at CG3 Battery Fund. We serve them to help them with their fundraising efforts. So I'm really excited to go out there and not only volunteer my time, but also use my CG3 batteries as a way to raise money for the cause. And so that is happening this weekend. Oh yeah, we were laughing about
Yeah,
this.
we were laughing about this. So this morning when I came into the studio, I drive in from Tennessee, as you know, in the morning, and I looked at the batteries on the table and it says Cleveland Blue Raiders. And I went to high school